Alright, so you're in the market for a new 7-seater body-on-frame passenger SUV. So, what do you have in mind? Probably the Toyota Fortuner, Isuzu MU-X, or why not the new Ford Everest? So, I've personally driven the new Ford Everest in Thailand and through off-road trails sa Zambales. So, I've really come to know this new Ford Everest quite a lot. And yeah, at this point, this is the best SUV that you can get with your money by far. So, dahil dyan, simulan natin tong video na to and let's talk about the new Ford Everest. So malaking tulong sa Ford yung kanang fact na this is a new generation vehicle from the ground up. Okay, so maybe not probably the ground up because this is based on the T6 platform of the previous generation Everest and Ranger. But the new Everest is not like basically parang, you know, meron bagong katawan and then call it a day. No, they actually heavily re-engineered the T6 platform of the new Ford Everest and Ranger in such a way na it's not just a carryover platform. So the car is wider, longer, with a longer wheelbase at the same time. And as a matter of fact, kanyang mahabang hood, it's actually a lot bigger compared to the previous Everest. And as a matter of fact, yung kanyang 2-liter diesel engine seems a bit too small sa kanyang katawan. And that's because the engine bay is now designed to fit a V6 under the hood. Anyway, before we get into the technical parts of the vehicle, let's just appreciate the design of the new Ford Everest first. So what we have here is a top-of-the-line 4x4 titanium, and you have this chrome grille, silver satin skid plate sa front bumper niya, and you have also this C-clamp LED daytime running lights sa kanang LED headlights. And by the way, dahil ito ang top-of-the-line 4x4 titanium, these are adaptive matrix LED headlights. So they're the same adaptive lights that, you know, partially block one of the LED arrays to not dazzle other drivers while you leave the headlights automatically in high beam. They also turn as you go through corners. Basically, it's the same headlights that you would find in Mazdas and also mga high-end brands like BMW, Audi, Mercedes-Benz, and so on. So it's a good thing that that feature has trickled down to the Ford Everest. Now, being the titanium 4x4 variant, you have 20-inch wheels. In other variants, you have smaller 18-inch wheels. Or in the sport trim, these are all black, which in my opinion look really great and probably my favorite in terms of aesthetics. Down the side, so you have a bi-turbo badge there kasi this is the 4x4 bi-turbo nga. You also have a titanium badge sa sides and a satin silver finish sa kanang stepboard. And then now, moving towards the back of the new Ford Everest, you're gonna see as well sa kanang side profile, by the way, meron siyang chrome detailing here sa kanyang window line. And you have here, not exactly C-shape, probably a half C na LED taillights which sort of mirror what's in the front. Then you have this garnish sa kanang tailgate where the Everest script is written, which gives the car a very wide appearance. So combined with the square-ish, boxy silhouette ng new Ford Everest, it actually looks a lot bigger, visually speaking at least. Though dimensionally, it's slightly bigger than compared to the new Ford Everest. So yeah, titanium badge, of course, it's a titanium variant. And basically, that's a thing with the new Ford Everest. It's one of my favorite SUVs na in terms of design in the segment. And you know what, since this is a new generation model, medyo unfair pa nga at this point kasi lahat ng kalaban niya are still either the facelift versions of the current models, or in the case of the MU-X, yes, it's an all-new model, but let's be honest, that car didn't really move the goalpost that much. So yeah, with the new Ford Everest, it's really visually striking, one of the best in its segment right now in terms of looks. And now let's move on to the inside of this SUV. Now moving on to the interior of the new Ford Everest, and if you've been in the new Ranger, it's gonna basically feel familiar, or probably the other way around, basta, you know, it's basically a rip-off from the interior of the Ford Ranger, and that's not exactly a bad thing for me, FYI lang. And that's because the interior of the Ford Ranger and Everest, both of those vehicles, are currently the benchmark for me in their respective segments. So here in the titanium variant that we have here, actually kahit even some of the lower variants then, no, you have soft touch materials here on the dash, the doors, and that extends all the way to the rear doors because that's often where manufacturers start to cheap out pagdating sa kanilang mga materials. It's the rear doors. But here, it's not the case. So, apart from the interior design, which is basically a rip-off na from the Ford Ranger, here in the titanium, you have more premium touches. So, you have LED ambient lighting here. You have faux wood trims, which look really convincing, by the way. Actually, like how they've done the faux wood trims, which are matched with this satin silver finish. Apart from the interior materials, which are class-leading in this segment sa ngayon, we also can't ignore the fact that this has the most comprehensive amount of tech inside the vehicle. So, you have two 12-inch displays, or in the lower variants, basically everything but this titanium 4x4. Everything below this has a smaller 8-inch digital gauge cluster, but here it's a 12-inch or 12.5-inch. Basically, yun yung size ng screen niya. It's really large, highly configurable, much more configurable, I think, than the 8-inch screen. But anyhow, yun nga. So, the screens are gorgeous. They look really nice. The sync for infotainment system, guys, I normally am not a fan of big touchscreens, but here in the Ford Everest kasi, and the Ranger as well, Ford has preserved the hard buttons pa rin. So, no complaints from me on this end. Sa wakas, mga kapatid, wala tayong reklamo sa manufacturer na to. In this case, Ford, migrating the climate control sa touchscreen niya. So, no runs for me on that. And in terms of the infotainment itself, it's Sync 4, by the way. Sync 4 operating system niya made its debut first in the Ford Mustang Mach-E. The infotainment system works really well. It's well integrated into these two screens, like they work in tandem. And you can control various functions of the vehicle through the infotainment system. And of course, you have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, both of which are, by the way, wireless. And since itong range-topping Everest 4x4 titanium has wireless charging, which is also, by the way, in lower variants. Not sure lang if you can get it in the Trend and the Limited. But combined with the wireless charger, you basically really can operate your smartphone integration features nang walang cables. And now, let's talk about the car's other features sa harap niya. So, you have, as mentioned, ambient lighting, and then you have very comprehensive amount of storage bins. You have a fries holder pa nga, and you're also gonna notice the electronic gear shifter. The purpose of this is because you have self-parking, and now with the self-parking feature, it's completely hands and feet free. So, you just hold the parking button here, and it will change the gears by itself, steer the car to a parking spot, and do the gas and the brakes for you. So it's completely automated, just like what you would find in luxury cars, kasi sa mga luxury cars, ganun na yung system nila. And that's pretty much all the class-leading tech and the amazing features here in the Ford Everest. And that's a good time now to talk about the car's rear seats. So we're here ngayon sa likod ng bagong Ford Everest, and there's plenty of room actually in terms of legroom. These front seats are set to my position. So sa height ko na to na 5'11", this is set to my position tong front seats. And okay, ano, kahit sa driver's seat, maluwag pa rin ang legroom for my 5'11" height. These seats, by the way, can move forward and backward, and of course you can also recline these seats if you want to. And then kahit meron ka ditong panoramic sunroof, which usually eats into headspace because you can have mechanism for the blinds, of course take up headroom. So kahit sa height ko to 5'11", I'm actually okay. Maganda yung aking headroom for my 5'11" heights. Siguro pa if you're 6'3" or taller, baka that's when you start brushing your hair sa roofline na. But it's actually still pretty good, more or less, for most Filipinos. And then other amenities, meron ka ditong center armrest with cup holders, your climate vents, or rather climate controls dito sa likod, your temperature adjustment, yung aircon mo. And yeah, yun, as mentioned kanina, the soft touch materials extend all the way here sa likod. Other cars, they would cheap out pagdating sa rear doors na, pero here you still get premium soft touch materials on the back doors of the Ford Everest. Ngayon, as you enter the third row, yun nga, there's not a lot of legroom, pero yun nga, you can bargain for more legroom. Pero yeah, for in terms of legroom, yun nga, an adult as tall as me wouldn't fit that well back here. Here's my legroom, practically dito ng legroom ko, and foot space is also not that good for my big girth sa laki ng paa ko. And you know, for smaller adults, mas okay ito. This third road be okay for smaller adults. Pero for someone as tall as me, nah, I wouldn't survive here on long drives. Pero yun nga, for the most part, this is actually a good third row for kids and smaller adults. As you're gonna see later nga sa aming road trip to Baguio. Pagdating naman sa cargo space, maluwag din ang Ford Everest. Because in terms of outright numbers, it's actually pretty good for the class. Pero more importantly, once all the seats have been folded down, you are left with a very large and square trunk. The power folding third row, by the way, is limited to the titanium variants, habang itong powered liftgate naman is equipped on all but the base trend. But if you want a foot sensor for the powered tailgate, you have to get at least the sport model. Pag-usapan naman natin ngayon ang kanyang engine, both of which are 2-liter turbo diesels. Just take a look at that cute little 2-liter diesel engine sitting inside such a large engine bay. And as mentioned kanina, this heavily revised T6 platform is now designed to accommodate a V6 engine. Or in the next few years, the platform is also ready for electrification. Anyway, itong titanium 4x4 na meron tayo ngayon gets a 2-liter twin-turbo diesel engine, which produces 210 horsepower and 500 Nm of torque. And it's only this engine that gets a 10-speed automatic. On the other hand, all other variants use a single turbo version of the same diesel engine, along with the simpler 6-speed automatic that in my opinion is better than the 10-speed automatic. So, ano ang pakiramdam ng new generation Ford Everest on the open road? Okay, so now we've hit the road with the new Ford Everest and so na-drive ko itong, by the way pala, itong Everest na to, na-drive ko na to sa Thailand and to our medium drive sa Zambales. So itong Everest na to is something that I've really known na prior to this lend out sa akin, no? So from the back seats muna, kamusta naman dyan ang space nyo tsaka kamusta ang comfort ng ride?
Maluwag! Maluwag na maluwag kahit na medyo sabi-sabi yung katabi ni Sense.
Saan
Kaliwa talaga, no?
dito tayo. Sa kanan dito, maluwag.
Siyempre, hindi niyo po makikita kasi
Pero that's, musta yung ride? Ang comfortable, no?
yes.
So that's the one thing na gusto namin sa bagong Ford Everest. So sobrang ganda ng ride niya. Dati kasi, though malambot naman ang dating Ford Everest yung previous generation model, pero ngayon, they've somehow made the ride more controlled. So dati kasi yung kanyang soft ride came at the expense of handling. So kung let's say you're gonna go through corners, tagang ramdam mo yung pag-pitch or pag-roll ng katawan. Ngayon, mas kontrolado yung ride niya, and as a result of that, mas stable din yung handling niya, as you're gonna see later pag-akit namin ng Cannon Road sa Baguio. And then ngayon, now that we're here sa highway, ang sobrang tahimik niya, di ba? Nag-agree kayong tahimik, ano? Sobrang tahimik niya. Game changer in terms of refinement. As in, it's currently the quietest and most refined SUV sa segment niya. Even more compared pa sa Nissan Terra, sa Fortuner, MU-X, yung mga ganyan. And then, in terms of yung kanyang handling din out on a straight road, sobrang ganda rin stability niya. So we don't do a lot of steering corrections. Talagang it tracks straight on this long section sa TPLX. And then, of course, you have the comfort of the driver assistance tech such as the adaptive cruise control, which by the way works in stop and go traffic. And you can ang lane centering or the lane keeping assist, which is actually good enough to keep the vehicle in lane. And paminsan-minsan you can let go of the steering wheel, pero yun nga, it's not a self-driving feature, it's just an assistance feature. So mag-iingay pa rin yung kotse kapag masyado kang matagal na nakabitaw sa steering wheel. And then, it's also good to talk about the 10-speed automatic ng coaching ito. So I've driven the Ranger prior to this, the Ranger with the 6-speed automatic. Hindi kasi siya yung bi-turbo. So the non-bi-turbo Everest models don't get the 10-speed but the 6-speed automatic. And I think sa totoo lang, that's the better transmission nga lang for me. So, okay, yung 10-speed automatic naman has been calibrated na at this point sa bagong generation na Everest and Ranger. Pero in terms of response, smoothness, mas prefer ko pa rin yung 6-speed. Mostly because of the fact na yung kanyang 10-speed automatic kasi, since it has so much gears, it tends to get confused. So let's say kung o-overtake ako, parang mag-iisip pa siya what gear to downshift pa kasi sobrang dami ng gears. But anyhow, once you're moving, maganda yung hatak ng engine niya. It's a bi-turbo 2-liter diesel engine, dalawang turbos, and power is delivered in a linear fashion. Unlike dati na all of the torque is in the low RPM range lang. Ngayon, for the Samo tuned the engine na pati yung higher rev range, may hatak na rin. And then as for fuel economy, lastly, for this highway drive, yung fuel economy is actually pretty good for a mid-size 7-seater SUV. So, we're currently doing 10.2 kilometers per liter, and partida fully loaded kami ngayon. Hindi to magaan ngayon tong kotse, talagang it's really loaded with a cat. May pusa kami sa likod, by the way. Hi Soba, mag-hi ka naman dyan, Soba. Sabi ko, Soba, hindi mga kaibigan ko. Soba kayong lahat. Parang hindi kita si Soba eh.
Si Yakisoba din.
Parang ba si Yakisoba?
There's a cutie at the back of the Ford Everest. And, even pets are enjoying the Ford Everest ngayon. Okay, so now that we're here sa Cannon Road, and this is gonna be a good time to talk about yung kanyang handling ng Ford Everest sa twisty road. So, as mentioned kanina, yung kanyang electric power steering has been recalibrated for better road feel, and as a result of that, hindi siya kasing numb nung previous generation Everest and Ranger. So, ngayon you tend to feel the tires more sa harap. So, at least ngayon alam mo na ngayon if you're losing grip or not, and as a result as well then you now find it easier to place this big SUV sa kalsada. And then at the same time, yung kanyang suspension, as mentioned din kanina, it's been recalibrated then to offer a much more controlled ride. So though soft pa rin yung suspension niya, hindi siya kasing wallowy nung dating Ford Everest. So ang ibig sabihin nun, if you're gonna go through corners, hindi siya masyado nagpipitch or nagro-roll kapag yung pinupush mo sa corners yung SUV na napakalaki, let's be honest. And at the same time, if you're gonna undergo hard braking, hindi rin siya magpipitch down yung kanyang harap, hindi siya magpipitch down. Then speaking of the brakes, by the way, this has all these brakes on all four wheels. So again, okay, most SUVs naman ngayon at this point ay naka-disc brakes na yung likod. Pero dati kasi in the previous Everest, yung rear disc brakes tend to feel the brakes still tend to feel spongy. Pero ngayon mas firm yung pedal feel niya, which makes it more reassuring under hard braking. So it's easier to modulate the brakes as a result of that, especially if you're going through these set of corners. Overall, I still wouldn't consider the Everest to be a fun-to-drive SUV. That would still go to the Mazda CX-5 or the CX-9, which are car-based nga lang. Those are car-based SUVs, unlike itong Ranger, or rather the Everest, which is based on the Ranger nga, which is a pickup. And then this engine performs really well in terms of overtaking. So it's a twin-turbo diesel engine as mentioned. And yun nga lang, I would still prefer the 6-speed automatic of the single-turbo models, but there's no denying the fact nga na itong twin-turbo diesel engine offers much better pulling power and much more effortless power for overtaking. So I would think if with the 6-speed automatic, mas magandang combination ng dalawa. So kamusta yung yung ride experience sa likod? Medyo rough yung road natin ngayon na.
Very comfy.
Yes. Hindi pa naman kami nahihiya.
Despite the fact na puro tayo twisty roads ngayon, di ba? Usually pag nandito sa twisty roads ang Cannon Road, may mga mahihiraw na dito. Di ba, Raywell?
Kaya ako ng Bonamid. Joke. wala pa.
Nax. And then yun nga, in terms of ride din pala, since the ride nga rin is more controlled, there's less body movement. So hindi ka na yung parang pag dumaan sa lubak, may ganun ka pang rocking motion. Ngayon, kontrolado siya. And at the same time, ang super rigid ng katawan niya, ng kanyang chassis. So the vibrations are absorbed before even they reach yung kanyang mga pillars, yung mga roof niya. So ang nangyayari is wala ka siya ng vibration sa katawan niya. So it feels very refined, very luxury car-like na nga at this point yung katawan ng Ford Everest. And that's basically the gist of the Ford Everest here sa mga twisted roads. It's a very enjoyable body-on-frame pickup-based SUV. And just like sa highway kanina, it's also currently may benchmark na rin in terms of handling sa mga twisted roads itong bagong Ford Everest. We also took the new Ford Everest off-road, and we were left impressed with its capabilities. It's also worth mentioning that the various drive modes are tied into the car's four-wheel drive system. So kung let's say pinili mo ang mud ruts, matik na i-engage ang four-wheel drive low, pati ang kanyang rear differential lock and hill descent control. But of course, you can override all of these systems completely. We also love the part that the off-road displays also come with a forward-facing camera, which is permanently turned on for as long as you're below 30 kilometers per hour. Yun nga lang, for all the good of these electronic systems, we don't like the fact that the rear differential lock and hill descent control buttons are buried in the infotainment system. Which then leaves the question on how we're gonna turn off these systems if the infotainment system, for example, crashes or nag-freeze yung kanyang screen. But other than that, the Ford Everest is making going off-road so much easier, especially for those who are inexperienced on going off-road. So what do I think of the new Ford Everest then? Well, for me, it's the best to look at, the best to drive both on and off-road, and at the same time, it also happens to be the most well-equipped and the most luxurious inside. Basically, it's the best in every aspect in the truck-based 7-seater SUV segment right now, thus making all of its competitors feel outdated. And if you're compelled to purchase one, the Ford Everest starts at a little under 1.8 million pesos for the base trend variant. And this variant gets you stuff like LED headlights and fog lights, LED taillights, 18-inch alloy wheels, smart entry with push-button start, leather seats, a slightly smaller 10.1-inch sync for infotainment system, 8-inch digital gauges, wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and even wireless charging. Stepping up to the limited variant adds a powered tailgate, power-adjustable front seats, USB ports in the second row, dual-zone automatic climate control, just to name a few. Up next is the Sport, which gets you sport-specific seats, a hands-free powered tailgate, and of course, a blacked-out exterior design, which are also complemented by 20-inch black alloy wheels. Stepping up to the titanium 4x2 adds a panoramic sunroof, a bigger Sync 4 12-inch screen, a 230-volt outlet for the rear passengers, power folding third-row seats, and ambient LED lighting. While the range-topping titanium 4x4 gets a 12.4-inch digital gauge cluster, adaptive matrix LED headlights, and the entire set of advanced driver assistance tech, which gets front and rear automatic emergency braking, full-speed adaptive cruise control, lane centering, blind spot warning, rear cross traffic alert, and the purely automated self-parking feature.